Thank you very much for coming. East 9th and Euclid was really kind of considered the heart of the city in a lot of ways. Yes, technically the center of the center of the city was Public Square, but East 9th and Euclid is a historic location for 200 years, and it was a center of civic life. This is where commerce happened. This is where people came to transact business. This is where this was really the main intersection of Euclid Avenue, which was one of the great streets in America. And so it had, especially after this incredible building was built, which is so iconic and an incredible part of Cleveland's architectural history, it became even more so. It was a symbol of a city that could do great things and was one of the premier cities in the United States. And then in 1996, this building closed, and this building has basically been closed ever since. And the previous county administration tried to help that situation, and unfortunately they made it worse. This beautiful, iconic building in this crucial intersection in a great American city became a symbol of a county government that couldn't do things right and couldn't get their act together. It was over their head when it came to making big economic decisions. So this really became emblematic of many of the problems of county government. Purchased the Ameritrust complex in 2005, and they used a very flawed process to purchase it. They weren't strategic about it. They overpaid for it. There were corruption issues associated with portions of it, and as a result, this property, which rightfully should be opened up to the public and part of our civic space, continued to languish. This doesn't even cover all of the costs, because there are costs in consultants and asbestos removal and other things. But just in terms of property acquisition, we're talking about $26.8 million invested in acquiring it. So when we took office in January of 2011, this was one of our many tasks that we had to take on. And I defined our task in this policy area as more than about Ameritrust. But first and foremost, we needed to try to recoup the money that we could for the taxpayers on the purchase of the Ameritrust complex. Secondly, it made sense to broaden the question and broaden the issue to make it about more than just Ameritrust. We needed to look at how could we save money by consolidating county functions. Third, if it made sense to consolidate, we needed to identify a new home for county government that was going to be, first and foremost, a convenient place for customers, taxpayers to transact their business, and also a good place for county workers to work productively. And fourth, if we could, we wanted to locate the county headquarters in a part of downtown Cleveland that would build on the momentum that all of us have seen happen here in the last few years, from the East Bank of the Flats to the casino to East 4th to Playhouse Square, all the way to Cleveland State, to the Medical Mart Convention Center. But this crucial intersection was missing its potential. First of all, we did our own internal review. So in the first 30 days that I took office, I directed my staff. I said, I want to look at all of our property, and I want to know where the property is. I want to know what we own. I want to know what we lease. I want to know how many square feet we have occupied, unoccupied. How much do we pay for utilities and overhead? What does it cost to keep the lights on and heat the building? I want to know how much we're paying for our portfolio. And what became apparent to me very quickly was we were paying a lot of money for a lot of buildings that were underutilized. So the next thing I decided to do was, instead of just having a fire sale, which a lot of people advise us to do, by the way, they said very early on, just put Ameritrust, have an auction, and if you get $1 million or $5 million, count yourself lucky and be done with it. And we chose to go another route, and so people criticized for us at the time, and they were wrong, because there was value in these properties. There was value in our whole property portfolio, so we went a different route. The first thing we did was we didn't assume that we were experts in the commercial real estate market. So we used loaned executives. We asked people from the private sector, can you advise us on this? and let us know what do we have and what's the potential. And we did that, and they came back and they said there is real potential here, but you need to get some consultants on board, and if you do that, you can save a significant amount of money. But you ought to look at the whole portfolio, not just one or two properties. So that's what we did. We had a competitive process. That's been one of our watchwords through this whole process. We try to have a competitive, open process to try to get the best deal for the taxpayers. We had a competitive process to choose the consultants. We chose a couple different groups of consultants, and most recently CBRE and URS. And we threw it out there to the private sector and said, here's part of our portfolio. We took 13 properties and put them on the market and said, make us an offer on these properties either individually or in connection with each other, and let's have a competition for the best process. And today is the end result of that process. It's been going on now for several months, and I can tell you that not only did the process have competition, but it also allowed us to negotiate for the best deal. Again, it wasn't a fire sale, it wasn't a one-day auction where somebody comes up and raises their hand and congratulations, you get the Ameritrust complex. It was a complicated real estate transaction, and we had the benefit of allowing these developers to compete against themselves for the benefit of the taxpayers. So today we can announce what we're going to be proposing to County Council. So let's go to the next slide. First and foremost, our result is that we're proposing that the Ameritrust complex be sold for $27 million to Geis Company. The use of the tower itself is going to be high-end residential, and the rotunda can be developed for retail and possibly public use. The 1010 building, which as you go out the doors here is immediately to your right, is also going to be used for commercial or retail. Keep in mind, by the way, this $27 million price tag, the prediction was, the conservative prediction was that we probably wouldn't get an offer of more than someplace in the range of $10 to $15 million. So we're pleased that we've got that amount of money for the Ameritrust complex. In terms of the county administration consolidation, what we're proposing is a new 8-story county administration building, which will be constructed at the corner of East 9th and Prospect Avenue by the same developer, the Geis Company. It will house a consolidated group of 750 employees who are currently dispersed amongst 6 different buildings, and that's important, and I'll get to that in a moment. The building is going to be a LEED certified silver building with plenty of parking for both employees and, most importantly, the public. It's an investment of over $180 million primarily from the private sector, obviously. And it's going to be a huge shot in the arm for Euclid Avenue. You're going to have a concentration now of individuals that haven't existed at this intersection in Cleveland for many, many, many years. Residents that will live in the tower, employees and customers that will be congregating around the new county administration building, as well as spin-off development that we think is going to happen as a result. And it's going to create a vitality that you just haven't seen at this location. And I believe it's going to help spur development, not just at this location, but from Playhouse Square to Public Square. Go to the next slide, you can see this fits in very well with other projects that are either already happening or are in the early phases of being constructed. A lot of them you've heard about, but you can see if the spots in blue and light blue are the Ameritrust complex. The spots in green or dark green are the new buildings that are either being renovated or being constructed now. This is really unique in a lot of ways. We haven't had this kind of building going on in the downtown area in many, many, many decades. Maybe since the beginning of the city, quite frankly. And this area that we're standing in or sitting in right now was kind of the exception to that. And now it's going to be a part of it, and it's going to help spur more development. Sometimes people may say or may ask the question, well, why do anything? Why not just stay the way you are and sell the Ameritrust complex for whatever you can get, and then stay in your same old deteriorating county buildings that you have now? Well, the answer to that is there's a cost to doing nothing. And the cost to doing nothing, just the maintenance costs of keeping the current buildings that we're talking about selling off in this whole process, is about $12.5 million a year. Under this plan, with a brand new county administration, state-of-the-art county administration building, which is convenient for customers and taxpayers and adds to the development of downtown, we can do that, and our annual costs are only going to be about $6.6 million a year. At the end of 20 years, the estimate is that we're going to save about $126 million. So you get a much better product for everybody involved, you add to development, and you save money, because you're getting out of 6 buildings, where at the minimum of 6 buildings, where employees are spread out all over the county right now. So what are the next steps chronologically? What do we do next? So this is kind of represents the conclusion of my branch of government's negotiations with the bidders that made proposals. And I would just note, we had several proposals, and they were competitive proposals, but we had a scoring committee that ranked them, and there was a strong consensus that this was the best proposal for many of the reasons that I mentioned. Tonight at the county council meeting, I just want to recognize my friends and colleagues here that are here from county council, Councilman Gallagher and Councilman Rogers. I know that Council President Connolly is en route, so she'll probably be here before we finish here. But we're basically passing the baton to them now. It will be presented on first reading at county council tonight, and they will begin their public deliberations. Now, we've had some consultations with them, but they haven't made any final decisions, and they will be the ones that will ultimately have to either agree with what the parameters of the deal that I've mentioned, or disagree. But we think that the proposal is compelling, and we also think that it's consistent with what we've heard as we've listened to council about what they wanted to see in a consolidation of building in a new county administration building, and what they wanted to see happen with the Ameritrust complex. So we're optimistic about it. Council, and it's important, they are not rushing their process. They are going to have 3 readings as legislation requires, and so this will go into the new year, but I would anticipate by January or February they will have made their decisions. We had actually 13 properties that were up for sale. This is just the first one of them. It's certainly the highest profile. It's the most expensive. It was the one that was most mired in controversy, and it made sense for us for all those reasons, and because it was an essential key component of downtown development. It made sense for us to bring this one out first. We're going to be bringing other proposals to county council after the first of the year. So you can look forward to, it probably won't get the attention that this one did, I know it won't, but in January and February you'll see other proposals that we're making on the rest of our property portfolio. If council approves it on the timeline that I mentioned, our anticipated move-in date for the new county administration building is July of 2014. So this mismarks an important turning point. It was an important test for the county government. How do you take a situation that was mishandled in as many different aspects as you could imagine to the detriment of the taxpayers, and how do you not only salvage something out of it, but actually turn it into a positive for the taxpayers, turn it into a positive for customers, our customers of the next 25 years, and how do you turn it into a positive for development in downtown? And as far as I'm concerned, that you put all those things together, which this proposal does, and you actually save money on an annual basis, and that's a home run. I didn't mention, by the way, one of the things I was remiss about is the county will own this building after the 25-year lease period. So after that period of time, we'll still be the owner of the facility. So we get kind of the best of both worlds. We get to lease, and the operations of the facility fall on the land, on the developer, but then at the conclusion of the lease, we end up owning it. So we'll be turning over to taxpayers at the end of this a building which is theirs, free and clear, that we own, that then has additional value as well. So when you put all those things together, I think it's a very compelling case that we were handed a very tough assignment, and I'm very pleased with the proposal that my team and I were able to come up together with for the benefit of the entire community, I hope.